It's Tuesday, which means PrizePicks is going to be running a number of different discounted player projections to celebrate Taco Tuesday. My name's CJ Curry. If you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed yet, this is your opportunity to get subscribed. Jump on the bandwagon before the bandwagon gets away. And while you're hitting the subscribe button, go down to the like button and smash that as well. Let's set today's goal of 199.5, meaning I need 200 or more likes from you fine folks on the other end in order for us to hit the over. And you may want to ring that bell so that all notifications are turned on. That way you don't miss out on any new content when it drops right here on the channel, because you guys know I'm dropping new videos each and every day, Monday through Friday, discussing everything from NBA to NFL player props. And so if you're not one of those people who likes to do research on their own, this is the channel for you. All right, let's talk about some PrizePicks Taco Tuesday. The first Taco Tuesday discount is already on the board. It's Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics taking on the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, these two teams have a little bit of history. Boston eliminated Cleveland in the playoffs last season, round 2, after Cleveland just barely slipped by my Orlando Magic. So it'll be interesting to see these two teams lock horns, see if the Boston Celtics can actually give Cleveland their first loss of the season. So Jason Tatum's points has been discounted from 27.5 down to 22.5. If you're not playing on PrizePicks yet, you want to take advantage of this discounted square, use promo code CJ Curry, make your first deposit, and they're going to give you $50 after you play your first $5. So that's already like a 10x on your money right out of the gate. Special link down in the description of today's video. So is this a good play? Well, I would probably say that it is, being that it's discounted by 5 whole points, but let's look into it a little bit further here, shall we? And for that, we'll go over to RotoWire first and foremost and check out their projections. As you can see, they've got 2 different columns here on RotoWire.com, the PrizePicks player prop tool on RotoWire. They got the lean more column, they got the lean less column. When we open up the lean more column here, you can see that there's a lot of blue bars that are trending over to the right, which means you should be thinking about taking the over, all right? Taking a look at some projections here. He's at 27.5 points on all major sports books, so that is good. He is projected for about 26.4 points, which is lower than his OG line of 27.5, but still much higher than his discounted line of 22.5. So taking a look at the hit rates from the 2024 season, how many times has Jason Tatum actually cleared 22.5 points? Well, he's done it quite frequently here. In fact, 14 out of the 16 games in which he's appeared, he's gone over. Let's just count these down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Excuse me, 12 out of 14. There you go. 12 out of 14 games he's actually cleared the over. He's averaging 29.7 points per game for the season, and he's got an 86% hit rate, all right? The lowest that he scored is 15 points. The most that he scored in any game this season is 37 points. Now, what about Cleveland? If we look at the matchups against the Cavaliers last season, he actually had fantastic results against them in those previous games. Facing the Cavaliers a total of 8 times, he's gone over in 7 of his last 8 head-to-heads versus the Cavaliers, averaging a nice 26.5 point per game total. So things are looking good here for Jason Tatum. Great hit rates, very strong projection at over 26 points. So should you take this taco? Probably, but let's run some other projections on Jason Tatum, because every projection model is just a little bit different from one model to the next. This projection model, which is Fantasy Labs, has him all the way up near 31 projected points tonight. So this isn't going to be one of those situations where maybe you take the under on the original line at 27.5 and you take the over on the taco line. For me, I think I'm just going to play the taco for more, and I'm going to leave the less option on the original line alone. Take a look at another very trustworthy projection tool here. This is called Shot Quality. They are taking everything you could possibly imagine into consideration when they formulate their player projections for NBA. Everything from the shot type to if it's a contested shot, the heights of the players, the location of the shots on the floor, so on and so forth. So Shot Quality putting a lot of information, detailed and advanced analytics into their player projection. So let's look at their projection for Jason Tatum tonight in these points. His points are projected for 32.53, gang, against Cleveland tonight. So again, do not take the over or do not take the under on his original line of 27.5. I know some of you like to do that. You like to take the under on the original line when it's a discounted play. I wouldn't do that in this case. I would only take the over or more on the taco. So for the Jason Tatum play, over 22.5 points looks good. But what are we going to put with this? Well, that is a great question and a question that I don't have an answer to, but we're going to figure it out together right here, right now. Let's take a look at today's NBA slate. You got a total of 6 games on the docket. As far as the injury news is concerned, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, you got some pretty decent noteworthy names like Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, Sam Merrill, all listed as game time decisions. Peyton Pritchard of the Celtics is a game time decision. For the Charlotte Hornets, Trey Mann is a game time decision. He's been playing well off the bench for Charlotte. Brooklyn, not really dealing with any too crazy of injuries. Nick Claxton probably being the most notable one, so Ben Simmons will be starting at center tonight against Charlotte. Dorian Finney-Smith and Zaire Williams are both expected to play game time decisions. Now, this is a big one right here. Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets is listed as a game time decision going up against the Memphis Grizzlies. Aaron Gordon already out, so Peyton Watson expected to start in his place. So keep an eye on Nikola Jokic tonight. As far as the Memphis Grizzlies, they, once again, like last season, have been dealing with nothing but a bunch of freaking injuries, and we have the same situation here tonight. Ja Morant is already listed as out. So is rookie Zach Edey. You got Marcus Smart listed as a game-time decision. So you're going to see guys like Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane thrust into much larger roles, and a guy like Scottie Pippen as well, who's been playing pretty darn good. That's Scottie Pippen Jr., Scottie Pippen's son, not the OG Scottie Pippen. As far as New Orleans and Dallas, New Orleans, another team just riddled by injuries. Their two key guys are going to be Brandon Ingram, obviously, and Trey Murphy. Outside of that, really, it's a guessing game as far as who else is going to step up. You've got Boston, Green, and Missy all in there. Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. No, just kidding. CJ McCollum is out. DeJounte Murray is out. Zion Williamson is out. Herbert Jones is out. Jordan Hawkins is out. Jose Grand Theft Alvarado is out. So the New Orleans Pelicans are just dealing with it right now in terms of injuries. Luka Doncic, another huge name on tonight's NBA slate, listed as a game-time decision. Now, they might end up resting Luka tonight. They don't necessarily need Luka Doncic to play to beat this beat-up New Orleans Pelicans team. So this might be a rest night for Luka. Just stay on top of that piece of injury news as well. As far as OKC goes, it's the same old, same old. Pretty much all of their bigs are out. Hartenstein, Holmgren, and Williams all listed out. San Antonio Spurs, it looks like Victor Wembanyama and Jeremy Sohan are leaning more toward being out than in tonight. So a lot of injury news from that San Antonio series as well. And then for Utah, Walker Kessler is already out, which means John Collins is going to continue to start at center going up against the Los Angeles Lakers and Anthony Davis tonight. Speaking of AD, he's expected to play. Rui Hachimura, not sure if he's going to play or not. Currently listed as a game time decision. He's more of a coin flip in order to play tonight. So that's kind of the quick rundown. It's important that you stay on top of this injury news because it could definitely shake things up. So what are we going to play with this Jason Tatum square? Well, obviously I'm taking the over on Jason Tatum at 22.5 points, but I want to put 5 more picks with this and make this a 6-pick flex entry. So obviously if we're playing 6-pick flex, there's a very high likelihood that all 6 probably won't hit. But we're rolling the dice. You got to risk big to win big in this game. So we're going to try and put together a 6-pick right here, right now. We're going to build it together, kind of a behind the scenes of the process, things that I look for, data points that I look for when it comes to building out a 6-pick flex slip. So let's look at this tool here. It's Fantasy Labs and their simulation tool. They basically have their own really sharp NBA player props, projections, and then they go ahead and simulate these projections out, and they try to see which ones have the best or highest chances of winning based on their simulations. So some of you who are familiar with NBA 2K probably know about simulations, simulating games, simulating seasons. It's kind of what they do here, but a lot more sharp and a lot more advanced than that. So you got guys that are really trending upward here. Josh Green of the Charlotte Hornets for under. You got Green under PR at 10.5. You got Josh Green under PRA at 12.5. You got Josh Green for under 5.5 rebounds and assists. So pretty much anything Josh Green related is looking really good for the under. Just to isolate this, all of these Josh Green props have about a 64.5% win percentage or better here. So let's pull up the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer and look at Josh Green a little bit closer. Let's see if there's anything that's trending on these sports books that would kind of give us, a lean one way or the other for Josh Green. Now, if Trey Mann is out, Josh Green could potentially step into a bigger role. So we do have to keep that piece of information in mind and in our back pocket. But you got Josh Green under points and assists looking like the best way to play him right now based on the odds pulled from these sports books. About a 52% chance for him to stay under 8.5 points and assists tonight. PRA is another one, about a 51.4% chance that he stays under 12.5 PRA. And then, of course, you got the PR at 10.5. Again, about a 51.4% chance that he stays under 10.5 PR. But again, we don't know what's going to happen with Trey Mann. And when we open up his news feed here over on RotoWire, he is listed as a true questionable due to a back issue. He was sidelined against Cleveland. He's dealing with a lower back injury. If he's unable to play, then Micic and Curry would see additional playing time off the Hornets bench. So according to the RotoWire editors here, they think that it's going to be Micic and Curry that would see the most benefit if Trey Mann is listed out tonight. So maybe we're okay with Josh Green being a under option. Let's take a look at some other projections here for Josh Green. We're going to go over to shot quality and see what's what for Josh Green over there. They got him listed for about 5 points, about 7 PA, about 7.3 PR, about 9.2 PRA, and about 4 rebounds and assists. So a lot of different ways that we could play Josh Green. So let's just go ahead and plug him in here for less than either PA or PRA. I think for this case, let's go over to RotoWire real quick and take a look at their projections. Like I said, we're just kind of building in real time here. So RotoWire's got him projected to go over darn near everything right now. So RotoWire disagrees with Fantasy Labs and disagrees with shot quality on the projections. They've got Green going over on pretty much everything. So I'm going to skip over that one actually and see if we can find something where all these top 3 NBA player projection models kind of agree. What about Julian? I'm just going to call him Julian of the San Antonio Spurs at 6.5 rebounds and assists. They're saying take the under on him. Let's take a look at where he's at on these sports books real quick. Again, we're looking for 5 additional picks to put with the Jason Tatum player discount, the Taco Tuesday discount. The rebounds and assists are sitting at about 50.5 right now as far as the hit or odds percentage for it to hit. It is leaning more toward an under, so the juice is slightly coming in on the under for Julian at 6.5. Again, this is another situation where San Antonio is dealing with some injuries to guys like Victor Wembanyama and Jeremy Sohan. Wembanyama being a game time decision, it does make you a little bit concerned that a guy like Julian may step into more minutes and have more playing time. So let's take a look at some of his projections here. Again, RotoWire loving some Julian today. JC, we'll call him, for the overs on pretty much everything as far as rebounds and assists go. He is projected slightly over at 6.78, but Fantasy Labs has him going under. Let's take a look at where he's at on shot quality. Shot quality's got him sitting at about 6.0 rebounds and assists. So that's going to be a little bit too sharp for me. I'm looking for a bigger differential between the projections and the line today. So I'm going to leave that one alone. Let's see, who else do we have here? How about Lou Dort for less than 6.5 rebounds and assists? Let's take a look at that one on the sports books. Dort, OKC Thunder forward, obviously. His rebounds and assists are sitting at about 6.5. Not really seeing a lot of movement or action on the books in this one. 50.3% chance that he goes over, in fact, rather than under. But let's take a look at some of the projections for Lou Dort. Dort, again, another guy that's going to be projecting over. RotoWire liking some Dort overs, so I'm just going to leave Dort alone, despite the fact that Fantasy Labs and their simulation tool has him going under. I like to find stuff that's all in alignment, all in agreement here. We got SGA for under 6 rebounds. We got SGA for under 12 rebounds and assists. Let's take a look at that. Projecting over on the rebounds and assists, and he's projecting over on the rebounds at 6. So RotoWire's just being very generous today with a lot of their projections. Let's just look at SGA real quick out on some of the sports books and see what that's looking like. If you take a look at the assists, he's projected over for 6 assists. That could mean 6 or more. His rebounds are also 6 or more based on the odds pulled from some of these sports books. So I'm going to leave that one alone. Don't necessarily want to go under if all of the data isn't in agreement, isn't in alignment. Continuing to look here, what about Javonte Green? Not Josh Green of Charlotte, but Javonte Green for less than 4.5 rebounds. Let's pull him up here. Obviously, Javonte Green is going to be in a situation tonight where he should be getting more minutes, maybe more opportunities to pull in some rebounds. And as you can see for the RotoWire projection, that big blue bar, that means he's projected really well to go over on just about everything, including the 4.5 rebounds. Projected for almost 7.5 rebounds according to RotoWire. So that's going to be another one that I'm just going to skip over, being that one projection model like RotoWire really likes him to go over. One projection like Fantasy Labs really likes him to go under. I can just feel much more at peace skipping over that particular play. What about Chris Paul here? CP3 at 11.5 rebounds and assists, about a 61.8% chance according to the Fantasy Labs simulation tool that he's going to stay under 12 rebounds plus assists. Let's take a look at where he's at out here on the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer, pulling in real-time data from all these different sports books. You can see that there's about a 52.1% chance that Chris Paul stays under 11.5 rebounds and assists according to the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer, and pulling in all these odds from all these different respective sports books like FanDuel, like DraftKings, like BetMGM, and like Caesars. So we are getting over a 52% chance for him to stay under 12 rebounds plus assists. So we like what we're seeing there. As far as the projection on shot quality, let's look at that one real quick. We're looking for a projection of less than 12 on the rebounds and assists. This one's got him at 11.15, so that does put him under 11.5 just by a little bit. Not a lot, but a little. Chris Paul over on RotoWire is pretty much a flat projection, meaning not really seeing much of an edge for the over or an edge on the under. As far as the hit rates go for Chris Paul, looking at the 2024 hit rates, he's averaging about 12.1 rebounds plus assists per game. He does go through these little streaks, we'll call them, of where he goes over like 14, 17, 17, and 16. He went over a streak of 4 games in a row. Then he goes under for 3 straight games. Then he goes over for 3 straight games. He most recently faced the Dallas Mavericks and went under in that one with just 8 rebounds plus assists. So I'm going to be okay, I think, taking this one under, going up against a tough Oklahoma City squad, a team that he used to play for. So I'm going to plug him in here and hope for the best. Maybe the Thunder end up blowing out the San Antonio Spurs, as they are 9.5-point favorites. And obviously a veteran like Chris Paul in a blowout would probably see the bench pretty early if that game does turn into a blowout type situation. So I'm going to go under on Chris Paul for 11.5 rebounds and assists for our first play to go with this Jason Tatum taco. We're continuing to build together here in real time on today's video. Let's take a look at another option using the Fantasy Labs projection tools. We got Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans trending for more than 30.5 points plus rebounds, a 61.75% win percentage. So the projections on Fantasy Labs are really liking Brandon Ingram to go over based on their simulations of tonight's game. So we know that he's expected to go over according to Fantasy Labs. Let's go take a look over on the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer and see what's cooking over there. Most of these are going to be Brandon Ingram unders, under 12.5 rebounds and assists pulled from the sports books, the odds pulled from the different sports books we have access to. Under at the 32.5 points and assist number, under on the points at 25, under on the assists at 6.5. The only overs that are kind of trending upward here are his points, rebounds, and assists. He's at 37.5 on PrizePicks, but a site like DraftKings already has him up at 38.5. So maybe throughout the day, you start to see Brandon Ingram's PRA line trend upward from 37.5 up to 38.5 before it's all said and done. And the same situation seems to be happening here with his points plus rebounds at 30.5. DraftKings, once again, has him up at 31.5 PR, points plus rebounds. So maybe these other books will fall in line here and bump him up to 31.5. So maybe we're getting in early on this Brandon Ingram pick. Let's just take a look at the situation here against the Dallas Mavericks. I think if Luka Doncic sits out, that this spread of 12 points becomes a lot tighter, a lot closer, and maybe the game ends up being a lot more competitive. But if you take an over on a guy like Brandon Ingram, in a game against the Dallas Mavericks where it's a 12-point spread, you're going to run into a situation where this game could get out of hand because Dallas is expected to be the much better team tonight, playing at home especially. So maybe Brandon Ingram does get blown out. If he does get blown out, then you're going to look at a situation where he probably doesn't get his full run of minutes. And if he doesn't get his full run of minutes, well, he can't possibly be expected to go over 30.5 PR. So I think there's a little risk involved here. I'm going to skip over this Brandon Ingram play and see if there's something else out there. And if you do like Brandon Ingram, like these projections seem to like Brandon Ingram, what you can do is you can take Brandon Ingram over, but take him over for first half only props. So in games where there's an expected blowout or a large margin of victory, like Dallas over New Orleans, look at the first half only options for a guy like Brandon Ingram. This next play is Keontae George over 12.5 points. Utah Jazz guard / forward Keontae George. 61.5% chance that he goes over 12.5 points. So let's look at the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer for Keontae George real quick. As far as the points go, yes, this one is trending upwards. 12.5 points is where he's sitting at PrizePicks right now. He's at minus 133 on the sharpest sports book out there, which is Pinnacle, considered the gold standard of all sports books. Then you got FanDuel, who's already got him up at 13.5 points. So things are looking pretty darn good here for Keontae George based on the sportsbook data. Let's take a look at some of the projections. We'll go over to RotoWire and check them out real quick. They've got Keontae George projected for more than 12.5 points. His projected points tonight, 14.47. And then when you take a look at the hit rates here, not the sexiest hit rates in the world. There are some games where he goes back-to-back scoring less than 13 points. But typically speaking, when he has kind of a down scoring game like he did in his last one against the Los Angeles Clippers, he does tend to kind of bounce back or snap back up. He's averaging about 14.7 points per game this season. He's going up against the Los Angeles Lakers tonight, which aren't a very tough defensive team typically. So the average being more than 2 points versus what his line is set at is kind of sexy, and maybe this is a good bounce back spot here for Keontae George against the Lakers. He's a young player, so if it does turn into some sort of blowout like it's expected to, I don't know that's going to impact his minutes a whole lot here. Los Angeles is projected to win this game by about 11. So this could be another situation where with a guy like Keontae George, maybe you take the first half play if you're afraid to take the full game play, being that there is a very high risk, high chance of a blowout in this game. So taking a look here at some other projections on Keontae George, that number's low enough at 12.5 where he could get this done in 3 quarters of play or 3.5 quarters of play if he does end up getting benched toward the 4th quarter. But projection 15.6 points, looking really good on Fantasy Labs, as we mentioned before. Taking a look at where he's at on shot quality, they've got him up at 15.12. So I think for me, Keontae George is going to be worth the risk here. I'm going to take the over at 12.5 points on Keontae George. All right, so we got 3 picks. We're halfway home. I know this video is going to be long-winded, but I want to be fully transparent and show you guys exactly some of the things that I look for here when I'm building out 6-pick flex entries over on PrizePicks. So if you're enjoying this kind of behind-the-scenes, process-driven style video, let me know down in the comments, or let me know by hitting the like button on today's video, and I'll keep doing these sort of more in-depth, thorough and analysis type videos. But let's go with another pick here. Let's go back to the Fantasy Labs tools. They got Zach Collins of the San Antonio Spurs projected to go under 7.5 rebounds. Victor Wembanyama's probably closer to not playing than playing. So Zach Collins at under 7.5 rebounds might be a little bit risky with no Wemby in there, but let's go run the numbers because we don't care about anything but the data, at least I don't anyway. Instead of trying to outguess and outsmart the sports books, let's use real data here. Zach Collins is looking really good though. Almost a 54% chance to go under 7.5 rebounds. He's a minus 155 betting favorite over on Pinnacle to stay under 8 rebounds tonight. So things looking really, really strong here for Zach Collins to stay under 8 boards. Let's look at the projections over on shot quality real quick for Zach Collins. Zach Collins is projected for right around 7.32 rebounds, which puts him closer to 7 boards than 8. So if you're leaning under on Zach Collins at 7.5 boards, I mean, that does look like the best way to go is to lean under on Collins. Let's take a look at where he's at out here on RotoWire. RotoWire's got him going for about 8.3 rebounds. Again, no Wemby tonight. But Zach Collins, as far as his hit rates go, he's only cleared 7.5 rebounds one time this season. That was against the Houston Rockets earlier in the year. A lot of games where he's gone under, but obviously those are going to be games where Victor Wembanyama has probably played. So let's go take a look at Zach Collins in a more in-depth way using a tool like Outlier, outlier.bet. bet, check out Outlier. There's actually a link down in the description of today's video. If you want to check out Outlier and take it for a 7-day free trial, well, you can do that. Now, one cool thing about Outlier and why I'm using Outlier to look at the hit rates for this particular prop is because if you pop open this little drop down menu, you can do something like games played with a particular player or games played without a particular player. In this case, we want to look at games played without Victor Wembanyama. And when we do that and apply that filter, there's only one game that pops up, and that game happens to be against the Dallas Mavericks here. Now, against Dallas, he recorded 6 rebounds without Wemby in there. So he did end up going over. So if we actually flip this to the under here, Zach Collins for under 7.5, like he's trending on the sports books. Well, you can also see that the matchup here for OKC versus Zach Collins and rebounders in general, OKC allows the fewest rebounds per game to opposing teams. Now, OKC is going to be playing kind of undersized and small tonight. When you take a look at how many rebounds per game that they allowed to opposing centers, they're more like middle of the pack. And obviously, if Collins is going to have a size and height advantage against somebody like a Jalen Williams who might be starting at center for OKC, then there's a little bit more risk involved, especially when you factor that Wemby is probably going to be out tonight, of taking the under at 7.5 rebounds. So I'm going to skip over that one. That's a long way of looking into that prop and saying, let's just leave that one alone. You got Colin Sexton here for more than 17.5 points plus rebounds. I'm not interested in taking Colin Sexton, being that we've already got exposure to another Utah Jazz guard in Keontae George. So I'm going to leave that one alone. Here's Brandon Ingram again at 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists, trending for more. But we did talk about the blowout risk for that particular game. Let's just take a look at BI real quick for some of his first half player props. So if you go over to Outlier and you type in Ingram's name, maybe the best way to go for Brandon Ingram tonight is going to be taking his first half player props. We'll go to the 2024 filter, and then we'll go over and look at stuff like first half points, which are set at 13. It's not looking great, gang. He's hit 13 or more points in a total of 7 of 14 games, so about a 50% hit rate on the first half points. If you look at the first half points, rebounds, and assists, well, that one's looking even worse here. About a 43% hit rate in terms of him clearing 19 first half points, rebounds, and assists. So I'm just going to stay away from Brandon Ingram in general tonight, going up against the Dallas Mavericks. So for those of you who are wondering about Brandon Ingram first half, not looking like a great play. So I'm leaving Brandon Ingram alone, full game and first half only. What else have we got here? We got Grant Williams of the Charlotte Hornets. About a 60% chance that he clears 10.5 points. Let's take a look at that one over out on the sports books. Grant Williams of Charlotte, who's kind of their small forward slash power forward. He's sitting out here at 10.5 points, about a 53% chance that he goes over 10.5 points. Some sports books like DraftKings already has him out at 11.5 points as well. So let's check into some projections here for Grant Williams now that we know that it is a positive expected value play, also known as a plus EV play. Taking a look at RotoWire. RotoWire's got Grant Williams sitting out at 10.5 points. Their projection for him is 11.6. As far as injuries go for the Charlotte Hornets, outside of Mann, they're going to be without both Williams and Richards in the front court. No Daquan Jeffries either. He's going to be out. So it's going to be Grant Williams kind of as the pseudo center going up against Ben Simmons of Brooklyn. And then Miles Bridges will be your power forward. So they don't really have a true center in Charlotte right now. They kind of alternate between Grant Williams and Miles Bridges. So let's take a look at Grant Williams and his ability to clear 10.5 points. He's done a better job here in the last like 5-ish games versus for the entire season. For the entire season, it's only a 38% hit rate with a 10 point per game average. But in the last like 5 games, he's cleared this in 3 out of 5. And he's averaging a more healthy number of 12.2 points per game with a 60% hit rate. So things are looking a little bit better here for Grant Williams over the last 5 games or so. He is projected to go over. Let's take a look at another projection. This was going to be Fantasy Labs. Grant Williams projected for about 11.9 points. Let's call it 12 points on Fantasy Labs. And then, of course, shot quality. We have to check the projections there, being that they're one of the most advanced projection models known to man. They've got Grant Williams projected for about 13 points tonight. One last thing I want to check, and we'll use Outlier to check this piece of information, is how good sort of the matchup is for forwards and centers in the points category versus the Brooklyn Nets. And so we can click on Grant Williams' name here. We'll go over to the points. We'll go 2024. And you can see that the Brooklyn Nets are about 22nd ranked in terms of points allowed to opposing teams. Now, as far as points allowed to power forwards, they rank 13th. Points allowed to centers, which is kind of what Grant Williams is a pseudo fill-in center. They rank about 20th. And so he'll be guarded by Ben Simmons tonight. I'm not so sure that I'm worried about Ben Simmons and his defense at this stage and at this point in his career. So he may be worth taking a gamble on, Grant Williams, that is, if he's still available. Let's take a look and see if he's still out there at 10.5 points. He is. All right. I'll take the over at Grant Williams, 10.5 points, and we'll see what happens against Brooklyn tonight. So there's 4 picks. We need 2 more to cap off this 6-pick entry. So let's go back to the Fantasy Lab simulation tool here. We're still looking for more options. You got Trey Murphy of the New Orleans Pelicans, 7.5 rebounds and assists. The less looking like a very high percentile play, almost a 60% win percentage on him, staying under 7.5 rebounds and assists going up against Dallas. So let's take a look at the sportsbook data here for Mr. Murphy. Starting with the rebounds and assists on the sports books, yeah, it's trending unders, meaning some of the sports bettors out there on the books with real money in hand are going out there and they're placing their money on the under on Trey Murphy III for less than 7.5 rebounds and assists. About a 51.6% chance that he stays under at 7.5. So it is a positive expected value play, a plus EV play in this case. Take a look at some projections here for Mr. Murphy. We're going to go over to the rebounds and assists category. And he's projected for about 6.7 rebounds and assists, putting him under the 7.5 marker, closer to 7 than 8. Obviously, if he got 8 or more rebounds and assists, that would really hurt our chances of going 6 for 6. So let's plug in Murphy's name over here on shot quality. Shot quality's got him at 6.2 rebounds and assists, and even better, more friendly projection on Trey Murphy. And then last but not least, we're going to go check out RotoWire. Oh, of course, RotoWire's got him projected for 9.1. So the majority of the projections have him going under. The sportsbook data has him going under. What about the hit rates? I know he hasn't played in a ton of games this season. He's had 2 games where he's went way under at 5 and 4, and then 1 game against Denver where he had an 11 rebound plus assist type of performance. Let's look at the matchup here to make maybe a final verdict or decision on this one. We'll go over here, Trey Murphy under, and we're going to go look at 2024, and we're going to go look at the rebounds and assists. And as far as this matchup goes, it is considered to be not a friendly or not a very good matchup if you're thinking about taking the under on the rebounds and assists overall. But when we go positional, shooting guards, still not a great matchup if you're thinking about going under against Dallas. Small forward, yeah. Overall, I just don't think it's that strong of a matchup. I'm going to go ahead and leave Trey Murphy off. I mean, if Luka plays, maybe it becomes an even better play, but I'm going to leave that one alone. Dorian Finney-Smith is expected to play for Brooklyn tonight. His fantasy score is sitting out there at 20.5. Now, for fantasy score, you should be looking at FanDuel projection models for fantasy scores. So let's take a look at those projection models. Now, we'll start with RotoWire and go over there and type in Dorian Finney-Smith going up against Charlotte tonight at 20.5 fantasy score. As you can see, RotoWire says he is expected to play today as of 20 hours ago. So he's been dealing with a left ankle sprain, but they do expect him to suit up tonight. He's projected for 24.1 fantasy points. And then against the Charlotte Hornets tonight, 2024, here's his hit rate. 67% is actually not too shabby. No Nick Claxton tonight. So Dorian Finney-Smith and Ben Simmons will be your 2 primary front court players for the Brooklyn Nets. He's averaging about 23.2 fantasy score per game, a 67% hit rate. This will be the first time that he faces Charlotte this season, so we haven't really seen any head-to-heads. Last season against Charlotte, he did clear in 2 out of 3 games versus the Hornets for what it's worth, which is very little. Last season was last season. But looking pretty good here, 24.1 projected fantasy score. Let's see where shot quality has Mr. Dorian Finney-Smith. They've got him projected at 22.89 fantasy score, just to the left of my portrait. You can see this projection highlighted here in yellow. So 22.89 fantasy score. So I'm going to go with it, and we'll plug this in Dorian Finney-Smith over 20.5 fantasy score. It looks like they took Grant Williams off the board, so now we're back to just having 4 picks. All right. Is there a different play for Grant Williams that I can pivot to? Possibly. They made his point either a goblin or a demon. Goblin or a demon. Nothing in between. Okay, that's weird. How about Grant Williams for more than 16.5 points plus rebounds? I think I saw that one on the optimizer. Yeah, 16.5. Let's just check this one. We'll have to pivot to this one if the points are what they are, and it looks like they are what they are. Yeah, we could go points plus rebounds on Grant Williams. Let's just double check some info here. He is projected to go over 16.5 points plus rebounds, something that he's actually done here in the last 5 games at a higher clip than just the points. All right, maybe this is the better way to go here. He's hit the over on the PR in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the last 6 games in which he's played. So let's do that. We'll pivot over to the points plus rebounds if they stay up and they don't pull them down. He is projecting pretty well for the points and rebounds as well, and that's got the higher hit rate. His points plus rebounds projection is 19.24 according to Shot Quality. So they like the Grant Williams over PR as well. All right, so we're back to 5 picks. One more pick. Let's try to get this locked in before any more shenanigans from PrizePicks happens, before they start pulling down any more player props. Brandon Ingram for, what was it? More than 25 points. I'm going to skip over that one. We already have Keontae George in there. LaMelo Ball over 27.5 points, a 59.2% chance that LaMelo Ball clears. LaMelo has absolutely no conscience when it comes to scoring this season. He is putting up an absurd amount of shots per game. In terms of his points tonight, looks like it's actually trending for an under at about a 50.5% chance that he stays under 27.5. So I'll probably just leave LaMelo alone for now. Let's see if there's anything else that's sticking out. There's Grant Williams for more on his fantasy score. So if you prefer Grant Williams over fantasy score, that could be an option for you as well. It's got the lower hit rate, I would say, out of the options between PR and the fantasy scores. So just another way that you could potentially play Grant Williams. What else do we have? Ben Simmons for more than 23 fantasy score. Again, he's going to be going against Grant Williams. We've already taken Dorian Finney-Smith over fantasy score, so I'm going to leave Ben Simmons alone in this case. What about Lou Dort for less than 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists? Let's take a look at that one. So we'll go and reference the sports books first and foremost. We don't see his PR up on the board anywhere on any sports book, but his points and assists are trending under for 51.8% chance to stay under. So let's pull some projections up here for Lou Dort on the PRA. Starting with this first one, which is Fantasy Labs. They've got him at 19.4 going up against the Spurs tonight. So that's going to be an under on Lou Dort. Let's take a look at a second projection. Shot Quality's got him at 18.35, another under for Lou Dort. And then let's take a look at RotoWire. RotoWire's got Dort going over for darn near everything. Pretty much everything except for maybe points and assists being the only one. He's been hot lately, though. Over the last 5 games, he's gone over something like points and assists in 4 out of his last 5 games. So without Chet Holmgren in there, I am going to just pass on Lou Dort for now. Let's look for another play. Ben Simmons, no. Dorian Finney-Smith, we've already got in there. Colin Sexton, we don't want him because we've already got Keontae George in there. LaMelo Ball, we've already talked about. What about Javonte Green of the Pelicans for more than 7.5 points? Role players can be a little tricky to predict sometimes, but even though he's a role player, he is a role player who starts. So let's go take a look at some Javonte Green lines real quick. Javonte Green of the Pelicans. Most of his lines are kind of just flat or even. You could take the over on his blocks and steals if you wanted to. A 53% chance that he's going to record at least 2 blocks and or steals. So that is the best way to play Javonte Green as of this hour, which is almost 1 p.m. Eastern time here on the East Coast. So what about Javonte Green and these blocks and steals? Yeah, pretty much everything Javonte Green is trending over like we talked about before. Has he gone over here recently? It's been hit or miss, as is usually the case with blocks and steals. Very volatile style prop, hard to predict when a block and or steal will occur. So I'm going to leave him alone, but that could be an option that you guys might want to work into one of your flex plays. What else is the simulator liking? Any other players that we haven't taken yet? How about SGA over 36.5 points and assists? Again, this is a potential blowout style game, so you got to be careful with a guy like SGA, but let's take a look and see if the points and assists look good here. Actually, it's quite the opposite. SGA at 36.5 points and assists, a 52.5% chance that he's going to stay under according to the odds pulled from these sports books. And then you got a lot of sports books that already have him at 35.5 points plus assists. So I'm going to stay away from that one. If PrizePicks bumps this one down to like 35.5 points and assists, then I would think about taking the over once he comes down to 35.5. So what else do we have here? Anything else before we switch it up? Brandon Miller for more than 17.5 points could be a move. We haven't really looked at any Brandon Miller, or Harrison Barnes for less than 12.5 points and assists. Let's look at both of those, starting with Harrison Barnes here. Harrison Barnes of the San Antonio Spurs. Most of the Harrison Barnes props are going to be over options. I don't even see the points and assists listed here. And then the other one was Brandon Miller, right? Brandon Miller under 17.5 points, but he is projected to go over 17.5 points according to the Fantasy Labs projection tool. So I'm going to leave that one alone as well. Not really seeing anything else out here. Let's see. Where's that Harrison Barnes guy at? Where's that play at? Is he out here for points and assists? He is. The less looking like the way to go according to Fantasy Labs here. So let's go Harrison Barnes, 11.6 projected points plus assists. So that does put him under. Let's check another one here. This is going to be Shot Quality's projection for Harrison Barnes. They got Barnes at 12.1, so a little tighter, a little sharper projection for Harrison Barnes. Let's check one more projection. This one's going to be RotoWire. RotoWire's actually got him going over. I know he's went under in 5 straight games, but they actually have him going slightly over tonight with a projection of 13.5. All right, well, let's see if we can find another pick here. Sometimes I like to venture off into one of these other categories, something like field goal attempts. So you got Jalen Williams projecting way under on his field goal attempts at 17.5. If you look at the last 5 games for Jalen Williams, you can see that he's gone under, even without Chet Holmgren, under 17.5 field goal attempts in most of the games here. Against the San Antonio Spurs as well, in previous head-to-head matchups, he's gone over 17.5 field goal attempts in just 1 out of 5 games. So this could be a potentially good option. As far as the whole entirety of 2024, he's only exceeded 17.5 field goal attempts in 3 games out of a total of 14 games. So most of the time he is staying under, averaging right around 16 field goal attempts per game. So RotoWire's got a projected for 15.3 field goal attempts. Let's go check some of these other sites. We'll start with Shot Quality. Shot Quality is going to have Jalen Williams projected for about 12.82 2-point attempts and about 4.35 3-point attempts, which puts him right around 17.1 total field goal attempts, which does put him slightly under 17.5. Now, another site that I like to use when it comes to field goal attempts is this one. This is NumberFire. NumberFire is a free site that has really nice projections. You can go and check them out. So you got to click on the player's name in question, so Jalen Williams in this case, and you scroll down just a little bit, and you can look at the field goal attempts projection. In this case, this one's 15.4 field goal attempts, according to NumberFire. So let's do that. Instead of Harrison Barnes, we will put Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder in there for less than 17.5 total field goals attempted. All right, and there you go. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not really seeing any sort of like negative correlation or anything like that. All of these are projecting well. All of these are plus EV plays, and so my max, I think, for tacos is $25. So that's what I always typically risk, is 25. If I get 4 out of 6 right, being that I live in a PrizePicks arena state, I'm going to get my money back. It's going to be a refund. If I get 5 out of 6 right, I also get a refund, being that I live in Florida in a PrizePicks arena state. And if I get 6 out of 6 right, I will 25 times my money. Now, if you're not in a PrizePicks arena state, what happens when you get 4 out of 6? Well, you get 0.4x of whatever you risk back on your entry. If you get 5 out of 6 right, you're going to double your dollars, meaning if you risk 25 like I did, then you win $25, meaning you'll have a total of $50. And then of course, 6 out of 6 is still going to be a 25x. So depending on where you live, things are always a little bit different. So that's the first 6-pick slip of the day. We built it together. I know it was a long-winded video, but I wanted to show you guys some of the process, some of the information, some of the stats, the data that I look into when I build out these 6-pick flex entries. And even though we have all this stuff that looks really good here, even though everything seems to be going our way before the game start, once the game start, literally anything can happen. Nothing's guaranteed. So please risk what you can afford to lose, bet responsibly, and we'll catch you in another video real soon. Good luck. Peace.